ATB waiting is something that's been a part of the route for this game for a long time now, but it's only recently that it's really started to come to the forefront with the emergence of Tantarian routes. This is because Tantarian drops an item called the Running Shoes, which grants us auto haste, and this allows us to ATB wait on many more fights that we otherwise weren't able to. In light of this, ATB waiting is something that new runners tend to struggle with, and it's not because the technique itself is somehow difficult to pull off, but rather it's difficult for people to conceptualize what the technique is trying to achieve. But really, to understand ATB waiting, you only need to know a few simple things about how ATB functions in this game. First off, it's important to note that every character, both enemy and ally, has their own individual speed stat. Now this speed stat is what dictates how fast their ATB bar will refill towards their next action. Secondly, anytime we're within a submenu, not unlike the one we're in now, so by submenu I mean anything you can select from this main command menu, so attack, item, spells, and so forth. Anytime you're within one of these submenus, ATB is frozen for everyone. So by that I mean it's not refilling for you or the enemy. Finally, a character's ATB bar does not reset back to 0 until the animation from their command is fully completed. So for example, if we queue an attack with Cinna here, if you keep an eye on his ATB bar in the bottom right, you'll note that his ATB won't start refilling again until after his attack animation is fully complete and he's returned to his ready position. Now, it's important to note that during that time where his ATB was sort of frozen at the top, everybody else's ATB was refilling. We might not have noticed it because all of our other characters had it at full, but in this case, King Leo's ATB was refilling. And you can sort of imagine that each enemy has their own ATB bar that is effectively identical to what ours does, and it serves the same function. So if we put all of this together, we can actually manipulate the game into getting extra turns for our characters, provided that they're faster than the enemy characters. What we're trying to achieve with this technique is put ourselves in a situation where our character has just taken an action and is also at 0 ATB along with a slower enemy. So for example, if we want to attack with Zidane, we know just by stats that Zidane, Blank, and to a lesser extent Marcus are all faster than King Leo. So ideally what we want to do is during King Leo's attack animation here, we're going to queue an attack with Zidane right now, and we're also going to hold ATB with another character. So now we know right now that King Leo has 0 ATB. His ATB bar has reset because his action is complete. So what we're going to want to do here is buffer in and out of the submenu. What this is going to achieve is we're going to be out of the submenu long enough to allow Zidane's action to commence, but immediately after he starts it, we're going back into the submenu to ensure that King Leo does not gain additional ATB while Zidane cannot. So to do this, all we're going to do is cancel out of the submenu and quickly re-enter it as fast as possible. This is called a buffer. Just like that. Now as you can see, Zidane's ATB bar has reset now. And because Zidane's speed stat is higher, despite having just gone, he's actually going to get another turn before King Leo. So just to demonstrate, we'll defend with everyone else. And we'll be ready to quickly cue Zidane's next attack. Now, some things you're going to want to watch out for. We're going to queue attack up with Marcus. Now, as I noted already, Marcus is faster than King Leo, but his speed stat is not as high as Zidane or Blank. So the margins for how slow you're able to do the buffers are much finer. So a common mistake that newer runners tend to make is that their buffers are too slow. Now, this is not an ability thing. It's not that they can't do it faster. It's that they wait until they see Marcus commence his attack before going back into the submenu. So for example, it looks something like this. So I didn't re-enter until after Marcus started moving. Now, not only is this not necessary, it actually makes it so he's not going to get an additional turn. So again, we'll defend, and I will be at the ready to quickly cue another attack, but you'll note that he's not going to get another one. It's close, but not quite. Similarly, though, if we do a very quick buffer, like we did in the first example, he is in fact going to get another turn in this case. So, there is a fine line, because you don't want to have to, you know, do the quick buffer 3 to 4 times in a row, but sometimes when you're learning, it's easier to just do a few additional quick buffers rather than do one slow buffer, because sometimes you don't have that additional leeway to allow ATB to fill, because the margins might be fine enough that you're not going to be able to get the ATB weight off in time if you do that. The other thing that people tend to do is once they've learned how to ATB weight, they tend to ATB weight everything, which in itself can waste time, because sometimes you just need the ATB bars to be refilling. Now, with that being said, it's important to know what you're trying to achieve when you're ATB weighting. So don't just do it just because you think you're supposed to do it, but have a goal in mind and make sure you understand what you're trying to do. So for example, in this fight, generally speaking, you're always going to want to ATB weight Zidane and Blank's attacks. Quite often, it's unnecessary to ATB weight Marcus, but it is an option if you need to. Ultimately, this technique, as said, is not really mechanically intensive. It's just about understanding how it works and knowing what you want to achieve. The only thing that you really need to get used to is this quick buffer motion, because quite often you only need that split second to get your character to commence their attack. Ultimately, this is just something that comes with practice, and it's something that you get used to over time. But in terms of the technique itself, it's certainly not difficult mechanically, so if you keep at it, it will come to you in no time, I'm sure.